We get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it! Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power! Fight the power!
Shine, flies, no time to waste while it's passing you by. Shine, flies, be patient, 'cause good things happen in time. We gon' get it right, we gon' get it right, we gon' get it right. We gon' get it right.
Protests and anthems, yes, we chanting. A movement of people, it's like we dancing to the ministry of. It's the energy of, in memory of them that we love. The trinity of the people, the peace, the power, the truth. We speak the powers even louder. We can say it blacker, we can say it prouder. A woman vice president that went to Howard. Now we talk helping black businesses, and our differences is magnificent. Bringing light to the poor and where the prisons is. I was told good life is where forgiveness lives. The ascension is to leave what's left behind and feed the seeds for deeds that bless the mind, caress the mind, and question justify with you and God in time are best aligned.
Shine, flies, no time to waste while it's passing you by. Shine, flies, be patient, 'cause good things happen in time. We gon' get it right, we gon' get it right. We gon' get it right. We gon' get it right.
How can I be a better father, son, a better grandson, honoring Fannie Lou's and the Fred Hamptons, the Harriets, the chariots that carry us to various areas that marry us to progress. Yeah, we the harvest, the lovely days and midnight marauders, even through charges and days of darkness. No, we in the hands of the greatest artists. I see it in the waters, I see it in our daughters. They could be bridges that know no borders. For so long, them folks try to ignore us. So we got the ballot boxes to vote for us. Peace to Stacey and the people of Georgia, who galvanize so that we can move forward. Steps are ordered with the presence of mind. Everything's more beautiful in time.
Shine, flies, no time to waste while it's passing you by. Shine, flies, be patient, 'cause good things happen in time. We gon' get it right, we gon' get it right. We gon' get it right. We gon' get it right.
We are going to get it right indeed. You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai, your host and White House correspondent. I'm in touch, and so tag, you're it. You be in touch. Follow me on all the socials at Dr. Nii-Q. Just type in Dr. Nii-Q, DRNIIQ. And there I am, fresh for you to follow. Also, download the KBLA app to listen to us live or on demand. Or these days, if you're feeling fancy, go ahead and tell Alexa to play KBLA Talk 1580. And there we are for your listening pleasure. Last but not least, subscribe to A More Perfect Union podcast. That way you'll never miss an episode. Listen, I know that Washington, D.C. is on so many of our minds. It's on my mind, in part because I have so many friends and family in the area. I live in Washington, D.C. part-time, and that's my community too. That's our community too. I think it was Whitney Elizabeth Houston who once said that she believed the children are the future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. The kids are not all right in Washington, D.C., and it's important that parents know that there are organizers and there are resources out there looking out for the kids. We know that kids belong in classrooms, and there will be an emergency D.C. parent Zoom this Friday, August 22nd at 2 p.m. If you go to the Free DC Project at Free DC Project on Instagram, you can get all the information there. You can also go to AFT Union and get the information on their Instagram as well. DC Public Schools, they go back to school on Monday. And this season should be a time of joy and celebration and silly first day photos. But right now, as we speak, armed National Guard members are all over DC, as well as federal agents who've been violently arresting folks in our community. They've been doing it for weeks. And a lot of DC families out there are feeling anxious. They're feeling stressed. They're feeling scared. And so tomorrow, parents and caregivers and PTAs across DC are invited to join AFT Union and Free DC for an emergency conversation ahead of the first day of school. They're going to discuss best practices for educators, lessons from Los Angeles parents who've been dealing with ICE for months, and how to support school community protection. Again, you can go to Free DC Project or AFT Union on Instagram to register. All right, now it's time for your national news roundup. It's time for you to decide the good, bad, and ugly headlines of the day. Kicking us off, the Associated Press is reporting on another school shooting. Villanova says that a report of a campus shooter was actually a cruel hoax. A cruel hoax. I saw the story pop up earlier today, and I thought, oh my goodness. My brother Joe went to Villanova University, and turns out it's a cruel hoax. A report of a shooter on the Villanova University campus that sparked panic among students and drew heavy police presence was a cruel hoax. That's what the school's president said today. In fact, earlier this afternoon, students had received a text from Villanova, from the Villanova alert system, that told them to lock and barricade doors and move to secure locations. And then they got a second alert from Villanova officials warning people to stay away from the law school. Radnor Township Police posted on social media at about 5:45 p.m. Local time that police were clearing buildings, but said at this time there are, quotes, no reported victims. They told people who were sheltering in place to remain where they were until an officer contacted them. But the initial report sent to police scouring the campus in search of a shooter, and even had some law enforcement officials suggesting they believed that there was a shooter. And so it turns out it is a cruel hoax. Nothing to play about, but apparently somebody out there playing. I'll tell you something else not to play about. Dishonoring people that actually lost their lives in a mass shooting. And that is what is happening in Florida today. The Trump administration removed Rainbow Crosswalk honoring 49 victims murdered at the Pulse nightclub. People magazine is reporting that a Rainbow Crosswalk honoring 49 victims of the 2016 Pulse nightclub massacre, remember that? Well, it was removed overnight on Wednesday following a new directive from President Trump's administration. The crosswalk is on Orange Avenue in Colorado, and Orange Avenue in Orlando, Florida, right next to the abandoned club that still stands as a memorial to lives lost. And in a statement on X, the Orlando mayor, Buddy Dyer, he called the covert update, quotes, a cruel political act. He went on to say that we're devastated to learn that overnight, the state painted over the Pulse Memorial Crosswalk on Orange Avenue this callous action of hastily removing part of a memorial to what was at the time our nation's largest mass shooting without any supporting safety data or discussion is a cruel political act. Governor Ron DeSantis, whose Florida Department of Transportation was responsible for painting over the memorial, he defended the action on X, writing, quotes, "We will not allow our state roads to be commandeered for political purposes." The true directive, though, it came from Trump. It came from the Trump administration. On July 1st, Secretary of Transportation Sean Duffy, he sent a letter to governors of all 50 states and Puerto Rico, urging them to comply with his, quote, Safe Roads initiative aimed at eliminating distractions, quote unquote, distractions on non-freeway roads. While the letter didn't explicitly name rainbow crosswalks as a direct target of the initiative, Duffy made it clear when he posted on X, quotes, taxpayers expect their dollars to fund safe streets, not rainbow crosswalks. He went on to say political banners have no place on public roads. I'm reminding recipients of United States Department of Transportation roadway funding that it's limited to features advancing safety and nothing else. It's that simple. You see how that happened? You see how Trump, through his Secretary of Transportation, put pressure on the governor, who then put pressure on his Department of Transportation to do this, at night. You did this while people were sleeping. Like, if you're really about that life, do it in the daylight. Do it in the daylight. Oh, but you didn't want no cameras, you didn't want no photographs, you didn't want anybody to see you doing it. But you wanted them to feel the impact of you doing it. It's nasty work out there. Moving along, speaking of nasty work, gerrymandering has captured the nation's attention, but a lot of folks out there saying that it's actually a win, particularly for California Governor Gavin Newsom. The LA Times is reporting that California Republicans are appealing to the state Supreme Court to delay Governor Newsom's redistricting plan. Texas might also find itself in court with new maps Republicans there have devised. Lots of attention on this. President Trump, he doesn't like uncertainty, especially when it comes to his power. And the midterm elections in 2026 are nothing but uncertainty. Republicans hold an Ozempic thin majority in the House at 219 to 212 with 4 seats vacant. And if Democrats were to take control, it would make autocracy really hard. So Trump's team reportedly called up Texas and asked them to rig their election maps to gain 5 GOP seats and a comfortable margin for the election. Governor Newsom responded unexpectedly by pushing an if-then proposition for the same map rigging in California. If Texas does it, then so will we. So will we. And at this hour, it appears that California has. NBC News reporting that the California legislators pass redistricting plans to put a Democratic-drawn map before voters. That's right. California's Democratic-controlled legislature passed bills today setting up a high-profile special election this fall when voters will decide whether to approve the party's plan to gerrymander California's congressional maps. Governor Newsom has championed this proposal as a political counterweight to Texas's recent moves, and a lot of folks are rooting him on. A lot of folks out there rooting him on. When we come forward, we're going to be digging behind some of the day's biggest political headlines with civil rights attorney and executive director of the social change organization, Todd Belcore. You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Chronic migraine is 15 or more headache days a month, each lasting 4 hours or more.
Botox, onabotulinum toxin A, prevents headaches in adults with chronic migraine before they start. It's not for those with 14 or fewer headache days a month. It prevents on average 8 to 9 headache days a month versus 6 to 7 for placebo.
Prescription Botox is injected by your doctor. Effects of Botox may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away, as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness can be signs of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Side effects may include allergic reactions, neck and injection site pain, fatigue, and headache. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Don't receive Botox if there's a skin infection. injection. Tell your doctor your medical history, muscle or nerve conditions, including ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects.
Why wait? Ask your doctor, visit BotoxChronicMigraine.com, or call 1-800-44-BOTOX to learn more.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. LA County's new Justice Care and Opportunities Department, or JCOD, is here to support justice-involved individuals and their families. The JCOD Support Center is now taking calls at 1-833-LACJCOD. That's 1-833-522-5263. Available 7 days a week from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., the Support Center is your one-stop shop for re-entry issues and court support. They offer court reminders, connections to local services, transportation assistance for housing, court appearances, and childcare. The JCOD hotline provides personalized help to connect you with services that you need. And don't forget to check out justiceconnect.org for more information. Remember, it's free and available every day at 1-833-522-5263. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Are you ready to be a part of the conversation that will help shape our nation's future? Get ready to join us for the Left Coast Forum, Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech, where progressive voices will come together to tackle the issues that matter most to working families across Los Angeles and beyond. From economic justice to climate action, from healthcare to housing, we're bringing together the brightest minds and most passionate advocates for real solutions and real change. With workshops, 2 major keynote addresses, and a closing reception with great music and good food. It's the Left Coast Forum, where your voice matters and your ideas take action. Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech. Brought to you by KBLA Talk 1580 and the LA Progressive. The future won't wait, and neither should you. Mark your calendar now to be there and be heard. Stay tuned to KBLA Talk 1580 for more details.
Hit me! National news, the consequence, informed opinion, and analysis beyond the headlines. You're listening to More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming a More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Corte, and look, I am really delighted to welcome my next guest. He is no stranger to us here on a More Perfect Union. He is doing incredible work in Chicago and beyond as the executive director of social change. He's also a civil rights attorney, and we're delighted to welcome back Todd Belcore. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, good doctor. I appreciate the time.
I appreciate you. I appreciate your perspective. There's a lot happening across the country, and we always appreciate you helping us to separate the fact from the fiction. And kicking us off, the Trump administration, they are slashing hundreds, or at least the Supreme Court is saying that they can slash hundreds of millions of dollars worth of research funding in a push to cut federal diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. The Supreme Court's decision came down today. The split court lifted a judge's order blocking $783 million worth of cuts made by the National Institutes of Health to align with President Trump's priorities. The court's split decision, their 5-4 decision, came down today. Chief Justice John Roberts was among those who wouldn't have allowed the cuts, along with the court's 3 liberals, but that wasn't enough. That's only 4 votes. The High Court did keep the Trump administration's anti-DEI guidance on future funding blocked with a key vote from Justice Amy Coney Barrett. What do you make of this? What do you make of this for people who continue to bring a DEI consciousness to their work?
Well, I think this is not only the most apparent effort to destroy and dismantle anything possible to complete and preserve the history of civil rights, complete and preserve the history of trying to ensure there's diverse thought at the table, complete and preserve the history of making sure any table, any community, any conversation has different perspectives. And for this to be something that's so transparently done and so vehemently and vigilantly pursued and fought by the Department of Justice, it shows exactly the priorities of this president. I mean, we have an economy where farmers are worried about getting their funds, where entire shipping companies are concerned about tariffs and the secondary and primary impact of that, and entire communities are living in terror. And his concern is, what other ways can he take? What other steps can he take to undermine and completely take the legs out of an entire sector of the economy? And that's the thought economy, the brilliance economy, the excellence necessary to make sure that we continue to have the ideas, continue to have the atmospheres, continue to have the cultures necessary for our economy and our communities and our businesses to grow.
I mean, part of it seems really foolish because the reality is that demographics are destiny. As much as you try to hide from it, we know that this nation has been browning, as some people have said.
Mm-hmm.
And that there are more multicultural, more multi-heritage individuals than there perhaps have ever been. And so the idea that the Supreme Court is letting the Trump administration cut nearly $800 million of research funding as a part of their anti-DEI push, how is it that people don't understand that, this is research doesn't just help folks of color and women and other minority groups. This helps everybody. I mean, Henrietta Lacks, her cells weren't just used for research that led to therapies that help Black people. Henrietta Lacks cells helped all people.
That's right. That's right. I mean, not only this is completely going to cause a real havoc on the economy because you're taking a lot of the brain power that's running it directly out of it, but it's also showing exactly how little the current administration cares about the economy. It's more about really padding the pockets of the people that have been supporting him or in his perceived class in the first place. I mean, if this was really about fiscal responsibility, this is really about anything that you can kind of put your hat on, they wouldn't be providing trillions of dollars of tax cuts to people who are already wealthy. They would not be doing everything they can to devastate and take the rug out from under our working farmers and our working class individuals. They wouldn't be doing things to revisit visas for people who are here for working purposes and all the things that are being done to wreak havoc, not only on the economy, but on communities and people's lives. So you're right to bring up that the destiny is going to be within the actual numbers and the demographics that are coming. But they're doing everything they can to halt that and cause as much harm as possible prior to that.
What do you make of this Justice Department argument? They said that funding decisions should not be, quote, subject to judicial second guessing, and efforts to promote policies referred to as DEI can, quote, conceal insidious racial discrimination. What do you make of that viewpoint from the Justice Department?
Well, the Justice Department isn't speaking as if they're lawyers, they're speaking as if they're politicians. I mean, what they're saying is actually explicitly counter to the purpose of the judiciary. The judiciary is actually here to oversee and make sure they're check and balance on what's being done by the executive, on what's being done by the legislative branch. So to not only say that it's inappropriate, but to kind of demonize them and put them in the category of some sort of political hack category shows the way in which the Trump administration and even the Justice Department, which is generally supposed to be more attuned to the laws and more likely to adhere to them, is really just doing the dog and pony show in accordance with the administration's asking, and really minimizing and trying to diminish the power of the court, the stature of the court in the eyes of the general public so they can continue to do what they want to do.
And speaking of doing what they want to do, the Trump administration is reviewing all 55 million foreigners with U.S. visas for any violation. The Associated Press is reporting that the Trump administration said today that it's going to review more than 55 million people who have valid U.S. visas for any violation that could lead to deportation, part of a growing crackdown, of course, on foreigners who are permitted to be in the United States. we already are feeling the effects of these ICE raids, of these mass deportation efforts. But it seems to me that this latest announcement from the White House, it signals a ratcheting up of these efforts. The fact that, under the Trump administration, this federal government is out looking for a reason to deport people, which is far from what we heard on the campaign trail when they said they were going to prioritize, criminals, violent criminals, people who had no business being here, people who were part of organized crime. Now, clearly that tune has changed, and they're going after people who may have the most minor infractions.
Yeah, at this point, you just said it, you nailed it on the head. I mean, this is not about pursuing criminals. This is about a cleansing. This is about making sure anyone who has a certain background doesn't only not feel welcome, but is more likely than not to be sent back home for something very minor, very technical, and certainly something that's not illegal. So there's a reason why this is taking place. And I think for people who are waiting for the writing to be on the wall, the writing's not only on the wall, it's being shouted out from the mountaintop that we don't want people here that don't look like the administration. If you look like the administration, then you know what that means. That means white people. I mean, if you're doing everything you can to take slavery out of the history books, if you're doing what you can to devastate and shatter and completely demolish DEI, if you're doing everything you can to make brown people feel uncomfortable, what more evidence do you need that this is a presidency that is not advocating for everybody, but more for the white people that actually put him into office? So it's time for people to wake up and pay attention to things like this, when people who are here legally are also expected to live in fear, also expected to be worried about technical infractions, and also have to worry about a court that won't necessarily defend them as we would expect. This is a time to stand up and say something and organize more than ever.
You're absolutely right. When we come forward, we're going to stick with what's happening in Washington, D.C., just because it is so consequential in terms of what may or may not be possible here in the United States in the coming weeks and months, not even just years. We know that President Trump said that he's going to patrol the DC streets with the police. Tonight, he's supposed to hit the streets in Washington, DC. The reality TV president is he's breaking the fourth wall. He is going to be putting on a show tonight in Washington, D.C. We're going to get the reaction of civil rights attorney and social change executive director Todd Belcore when we come forward. You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
The audience is listening, thought-provoking, eye-opening, heart-rendering. This is where authentic voices meet powerful discussions on culture, community, and change. This is where Black voices matter. He's breaking boundaries, amplifying diverse perspectives, and tackling the issues that matter most to you. You're inside A More Perfect Union with Dr. Nii-Quartelai on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Police are searching Villanova's campus in Pennsylvania after an active shooter alert was issued around 4:30 p.m. Students were told to shelter in place, and video shows many running from an outdoor event. Today marked opening day at the Catholic University near Philadelphia. A jury has found Hernandez Govan not guilty of arranging the killing of Memphis rapper Young Dolph. Prosecutors accused him of ordering the hit carried out by two other suspects. After the verdict, Govan thanked jurors and supporters who stood by him. And Black New York Attorney General Letitia James says she'll appeal after a court tossed President Trump's $500 million fraud penalty, calling it excessive. While Trump claimed total victory, judges still found him, his company, and two of his children liable for fraud, saying he lied on financial statements to lenders, limiting their ability to do business in New York. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Top in West Covina, there's a stalled out big rig on the 10 eastbound at Vincent. Two right lanes are blocked and big delays backing up all the way out of City Terrace from City Terrace Drive. Highland Park, a crash on the 110 northbound Avenue 43. They're clearing it out of the left lane. The overall delays for that 110 northbound are stacking up out of South LA, leaving the 105. Tough out of Pasadena, East 210 for Mountain. Delays and stretches all the way to the 15 freeway.
San Diego's events calendar is full of flavor. Dig into local wine and food festivals, treat the family to kid-inspired deals all October, and get a taste of glory at the Breeders' Cup World Championship. Plan your trip now at sandiego.org/awesome all year. Funded in part with City of San Diego Tourism Marketing District Assessment Fund.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Tickets are on sale for the Las Vegas HBCU Classic between Grambling and Jackson State. It's the first ever HBCU football game in Vegas. The game is Saturday, October 25th at Allegiant Stadium, home of the NFL Las Vegas Raiders. 3 p.m. kickoff. Tickets are available on Ticketmaster or the Allegiant Stadium website. There will be at least 7 African Americans competing in this year's U.S. Open tennis tournament in New York City. 5 women and 2 men. The tournament kicks off on Sunday. On the women's side, Coco Gauff, the number 3 player in the world, Venus Williams, Madison Keys, Taylor Townsend, and Sakia Vickery. In the men's bracket, Ben Shelton, ranked number 6 in the world, and Francis Tiafoe. 2 NFL preseason games on the schedule today. Pittsburgh at Carolina on the NFL Network, and New England at the New York Giants on Prime Video. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah, y'all, come on. Pick up the drum.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Yeah, gotta give us what we want. Gotta give us what we need. Hey.
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it. Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power. Fight the power. Fight the power.
Become a U.S. citizen with the help of the Los Angeles Public Library. Get free and confidential information on immigration and citizenship. Visit lapl.org/NAI to find your nearest library or call us at 213-228-7390. That's lapl.org/NAI or 213-228-7390 and start your path to becoming a U.S. citizen with the help of the Los Angeles Public Library. Call 213-228-7390 or visit lapl.org/NAI.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. If you need help getting your resume in order, finding job training, or landing a job, we've got 3 great options for you. First, the City of Los Angeles has WorkSource centers across the area offering free job support. The California Workforce Development Board can help you with everything from GED prep to vocational training at no cost to you. On the federal level, the Department of Labor's American Job Centers offer a full range of services for job seekers and businesses alike. Visit careeronestop.org or for more info, just call California's Help Center or visit cwdb.ca.gov or call 916-657-1440. For the City of Los Angeles programs, go to ewdd.lacity.gov or call 213-744-7300. All these services are free to help you get your next job. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Now back to building a more perfect union on KBLA Talk 1580.
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Corte, and he is Todd Belcore. He's the Executive Director of Social Change. He is also a civil rights attorney, and he is a frequent contributor here on A More Perfect Union. Every time he's on, I feel like we get a little bit smarter because this is the deal. Todd is not just a civil rights attorney, but he's connected to the streets. He's connected to the grassroots. And to me, that's a rare combination in some of the folk that we have a chance to feature on the show. And so I'm so glad that you made the time to be here with us.
Thank you for the opportunity. Good doctor. Obviously, there's so much going on, so much to talk about. And thank you for prioritizing that instead of just kind of the phenomenon, sensations going on around here, but the real stuff affecting people's lives. And you cover that without question and without pause. And I appreciate you for that.
Well, I appreciate you for acknowledging that. And look, we know that policing is an issue that impacts so many of our communities, whether you're talking about urban communities, rural communities, big cities, medium-sized cities, small towns, so seeing the president make the decision to go out with DC police, especially in the current context of the DC police takeover, that carries a lot of weight. And we don't know what we're going to see when he goes out with the DC police tonight. But talk to us about the consequences of this president going on a stakeout with DC police in its current state.
Well, it's hard to figure what the motivation is. I mean, the crime is clear. The issues of homelessness, the issues of lack of opportunity are well enumerated and well articulated before his office by people like our organization at Social Change and Beyond. So to go out there and see it would only make sense if that meant he had some intention to do something positive to address it. But there's no reason to think that's the goal. At this point, it's the only reason that I can imagine that he's doing something like this is continue to shame the DC police, continue to put a negative light on Mayor Bowser, and to lock up more Black and brown people who are just doing the best they can to maintain, whether it be homeless or otherwise. So not only is it bad practice for the most important person in the country to be in a regular squad car going about a city, but it's also bad practice when the intention is not to help but to harm. And that's certainly what seems to be the case here.
Trump said that the aggressive steps were necessary to combat crime in the city, even though Washington, D.C.'s violent crime rate was down 26% in 2025 compared with the last year. Talk to us about the stagecraft of this, right? And how the president going out, hitting the streets with the DC Metropolitan Police, how this stagecraft, how it serves this narrative that we all know to be false. If you're looking at the numbers show that violent crime is down in DC. And, I've been on the air and so many other people have been on the air and saying, look, there's always more to do when it comes to public safety. And so I don't mean to diminish, any examples of crime that folks have experienced. But I'm saying that DC is tracking in the right direction when it comes to violent crime, which is and that reality is at odds with what the president, his administration keeps saying. And so talk to us about what you believe the president is attempting to do and how, the president's actions, may actually do more to erode trust between community and public safety than inspire it.
Yeah, this is more about entertainment than public safety. This is more about making a spectacle and scapegoating than leadership. And unfortunately, this is going to do nothing but harm, not only community and police relations, as you mentioned, but harm to people on the ground who are actually suffering through as a victim of crime, where people are suffering and put in a position where survival causes them to lead a life of crime. So not only is it showing how tone deaf the president is, but it's also showing how he'll go through whatever steps possible to distract from all the harm he's causing on a grander scale to businesses, to communities, to families, in an attempt to just say, hey, well, look at the red meat. We have to do something about crime. And this is my way of showing I'm all in response to it by being in the squad car. But that just shows not only how little he understands his own importance, which is kind of an odd kind of irony in terms of how he normally views himself, but it also shows that he doesn't really understand how policing works. And certainly in the case of policing, no one wants to have to not only worry about protecting the street and protecting the community, but also looking out for the president of the United States. Not only will that make them not effective, that also, as you've already made very clear, would also give them a much different impression of how they should go about their day, how should they explain what's going on, how to advocate for what's necessary to actually continue in that right direction. Because his presence is indicating what's happening now is not progress when it's everything indicating it's absolute progress. And in fact, it's almost a gold standard. So for him to be demonizing the gold standard shows that he's looking at for fool's gold rather than actual gold. And that's also ironic because that's kind of his calling card, unfortunately. So it's It's unfortunate for Mayor Bowser. It's unfortunate for the chief of police. It's unfortunate for the community. And hopefully there are enough people who see through it on the federal end to put a check on that.
You mentioned the DC police chief, and you're the perfect person to ask this question to. I keep thinking about the executive order that the police chief put out recently that basically rescinded a previous policy where DC police didn't coordinate, didn't collaborate with the feds when it came to encounters they might have had with undocumented folks in Washington, D.C. That has changed. And I put this question to the president himself, asking if he or folks in the administration had pressured the DC police chief to make this decision. It's no secret that this administration is not a fan of sanctuary cities. And, I want to get your thoughts on whether or not that was the right move on the part of the DC police chief to give on this very specific issue that the president is striving to get other local leaders to bend on.
That's right. We don't know the president's actual role in that actual conversation or in the outcome of the rescinding of that policy, but we know who the president is. And the president is someone who is willing to threaten, willing to engage in very clear retribution, all the things necessary to put the pressure on someone that they have. He actually, in this case, has some power over, given the control that the federal government has over DC versus other states. And that's enough pressure to make a lot of people fold. Now, this would have been a great opportunity for the chiefs to stand up. But it's also hard to know what they're dangling over him in his life and what's going on overall that could make someone change their decision and do something so radically opposed to what's been done previously. But there's no reason not to think, and of course, I appreciate the invitation for the president to say otherwise, that this wasn't done as a result of coercion, because it's such a drastic turnaround from what was there previously.
We are seeing some really nasty tactics in Washington, D.C. when it comes to law enforcement that's been federalized by this president. We're seeing ICE agents and DEA agents and even D.C. police officers that are engaging with folks in the community in ways that I have never seen. I mean, I have lived in Washington, D.C. for the past 10 years. I've never seen anything like this before. Checkpoints set up in different parts of town. There was a checkpoint I saw that was set up maybe a few miles from my house in Northeast DC. And, seeing folks being snatched out of their cars, seeing Uber Eats drivers, seeing DoorDash drivers detained by federal officials. Are we watching sort of the worst policing tactics sort of come back with a vengeance?
Well, I don't think they could be identified as policing tactics. This is actual criminal conduct that's not taking place on the community level, but actually on the governmental level. I think at this point, it's fair to say, and I think it's clear that what the government's currently doing is acting in state-sanctioned violence and state-sanctioned deprivation of freedom, and that is the most alarming form of governmental overreach and abuse of power. And I think he's inched towards these precipices for so long and done things that were kind of glaring and completely shocking to conscience for so long that when it gets to the point where it goes from, talking about getting criminals to talking about getting people who have visas, just to double check, to having checkpoints, you start to become immune to the previous level of egregious behavior, and the next level becomes only marginally worse. But when you look where we were 2 years ago, none of this was even feasible. So it's important for people to take a moment to see where we've come from, to be reminded how far this has gotten and how dangerous it is, not only for the people who do have, who are without documentation, but their family members, people who love them, and the community in general who are in fear of being profiled, whether they're documented or not.
By contrast, part of what we're seeing in Los Angeles, is what's possible. What's possible when we invest in pilot programs that free up police officers to do what they do best and to task first responders, crisis responders from doing what they do best. The LA Times reporting that LA touts results of using unarmed civilians instead of cops for some emergencies. The use of so-called unarmed crisis responders. There's a report that found that it not only offers specialized care to people who need help, it also allows LAPD more time to focus on traditional law enforcement. The ongoing pilot program has teams of licensed clinicians and social workers and community workers and therapists who work in pairs responding to calls around the clock 7 days a week. Over the first year, the program handled more than 6,700 calls, largely to conduct welfare checks and respond to reports of public intoxication and indecent exposure. Well, guess what? They saved police nearly 7,000 hours of patrol time by freeing them up for other tasks. And so while we're watching, some of the worst policing tactics being employed by folks who've been federalized by President Trump in Washington, D.C., by contrast, here in Los Angeles, we're seeing some successes with this pilot program. Should we continue to hold out hope that it's possible to see this pilot program scaled up and replicated in other parts of the country, even in the age of Trump?
Well, I think this is not only an incredible program, but it shows that nothing is being done by the Trump administration to tout anything good going on or to continue anything good going on. It's less about safety and more about creating fear, more about making sure people are scared. And it's the idea that people are more afraid of their government than they are of the community is the entire purpose of the revolution in the first place. So when you think about what's going on in places like LA, where they're saving millions of dollars, but more importantly, saving lives, because you haven't heard of any involves folks who are doing these investigations who've killed somebody or have done something untoward. That's exactly what the community needs to resolve disputes and deal with issues in the community. And the fact that it means that police, who we normally hear about a lot of shootings but not a lot of catchings, can actually spend more time on investigating the crimes of murder and the heinous crimes that people associate with the police. That's exactly the purpose of all of this. And that's what the administration should be backing versus rebelling against and pushing against. So that's why it's impossible to believe the administration when he says about public safety, but it's more about creating terror. And it's crazy that people aren't seeing the transparency of that, because the effect of that not only diminishes actual good police work, it means that the police are now emboldened and empowered to do things that we know are violating our Constitution, but also can cost the lives of entire families and communities.
You're right. I mean, we have our work cut out for us. But I was just talking to a friend on the drive to the studio, and we were reminding each other that we've experienced worse. We've experienced worse. I know this moment is feeling really bad. It's feeling really anxiety ridden. But it's important for us to be able to hold on to examples of what is working, even at a time where it feels like so much is falling apart.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good point. I mean, but we're not supposed to be, wishing for the days where, 10 years ago where it was better. I mean, to compare this era to when it was worse is when things were about as bad as it can be in terms of the last 50 years, 60 years. And the fact that we're regressing this significantly is why people need to wake up and get more involved, pay attention to your show, and be more engaged. But you're right, at the end of the day, I mean, this is not all out civil war. This is not, reinstituting slavery. But the fact that those are thoughts that says where this can progress to is all the more reason why people need to be buckling down, paying attention, and getting involved. Social media is going to be there, TV is going to be there, sports is going to be there, but we need to make sure we're fighting for our civilization, our Constitution, and all the things we hold dear right now.
What can people do in our remaining minute? What can people do to sort of tap in to the work that you're leading at Social Change in Chicago and beyond?
Yeah, whether you're involved in voting rights or involved in justice reform or access to employment or housing, any of the things that we work on, the goal is for people not necessarily to get louder in their complaints, but to get more involved and closer to the issue, to be a part of the movement to resolve it. So please, whether it be joining us at Social Change, Social Change on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter, or joining any other organizations who are on the front lines trying to do something meaningful just to stand up for our civil liberties or civil rights, not just for Black people, but for all communities. Now is that time. So thank you for bringing attention to these really critical issues, Doctor. But at the same time, folks, this is not entertainment. This is real life going on right now. So we need people to take real life action in response.
And one of those real life actions is registering folks to vote. There was a report that came out recently that suggested that Republicans actually have an advantage right now in terms of voter registration. And so, every show we remind people, do what you can from where you are with what you have. One of the most fundamental things that we can all do is register to vote. And once we register ourselves, to make sure that we are registering everyone in our orbit to exercise their agency.
That's right. I mean, that is not only the critical thing, that's the bedrock thing. That's the only thing. So let's make sure we prioritize that as we continue to make sure we fight and defend the freedoms and individual liberties of our community members on our left and right of us.
Our thanks to Todd Belcore, Executive Director of Social Change. He's also a civil rights attorney and a frequent contributor here on A More Perfect Union. Thanks so much for all the work that you do on the front lines of change.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate the opportunity.
You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580, the quiet part out loud when we come forward.
Striving to make America a nation as good as its promise. This is
You are listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Corte, and it is about that time for the quiet part out loud. For those of you out there that are on the dating scene, you may know a whole lot more about this than I do, but there is a new dating term called shrekking. Have you heard of it? Brother Andy, have you heard of it? Brother Andy, he wagged his head real quick. He said, I ain't heard of it. The new dating term shrekking, it sounds innocent, but it's not what you think. Apparently, there's this new dating trend afoot. And experts say it needs to get sent back far, far, far away. It's called shrekking, though the term derives its name from the wholesome animated film Shrek. In the dating world, is anything but charming. You see, shrekking involves dating someone you're not attracted to in the hopes that the person will treat you better in return. After all, Princess Fiona took a chance on Shrek, and that turned out great for her, right? Well, unfortunately, when you get shreked, according to our friends over at USA Today, it means a person you lowered your standards for still ended up hurting you. Yeah. So be careful out there in those dating streets. You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. In our next hour, you don't want to miss my conversation with a pioneer who is a part of a family of pioneers. I'm talking about centuries of folks in her family that are pioneers. Cheryl McKissick Daniels joins me in the next hour to talk about her new book and her enduring family legacy. You're listening to and streaming A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Attorney Ben Crump and Reverend Al Sharpton filed a lawsuit against New York City and two construction firms over a Harlem Legionnaires outbreak.
When corporations cut corners, tragedies like this happen.
The suit claims negligence with untreated cooling towers led to 5 deaths and over 100 illnesses. Black Rep Jasmine Crockett is slamming Rep Marjorie Taylor Greene's remarks, questioning her understanding of the Black experience, calling them racist. Crockett defended her identity as a Black woman with an education and shared a racist email she received as proof of ongoing discrimination. And former top advisor to Black New York City Mayor Eric Adams, Ingrid Lewis Martin, who is also Black, pleaded not guilty to state bribery and conspiracy charges. She's accused of taking $175,000 in bribes between 2022 and 2024. Her lawyer says the case is politically motivated. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.